There's that ever.
Welcome to the Authors Hour. My name is Fred Zern, and I represent the Friends of the Chicago Writers Center. We are a volunteer organization whose mission is to promote writing and writers on the institution grounds and beyond by both supporting and supplementing the activities of the Chicago Institution Writers Center. We sponsor several events every week. On Sundays at 5 o'clock in the Prose Room on the second floor of this building, we hold an open mic where writers and listeners 18 years old and above, I think you all qualify, are invited to participate in an open mic session. On Wednesdays at 1:15 in the ballroom, also on the second floor of this building, we offer an informal critique session. Writers are invited to bring in 10 copies of one single space page of their prose or poetry for feedback, guided by published writers. And today, as part of the Tuesday Authors Hour reading series, 3 Chicago writers will present their work. I'll tell you about some other events after our first reader. And I need to be on my toes because we've changed order. Our first reader is actually Alissa Sammarco. She is deeply connected to the southern tier of New York, a third-generation Chicagoan, and images of Chicago often find their way into her writing. While at the University of Rochester, she studied creative writing and economics. Now she lives, writes, and practices law in Cincinnati, Ohio, but maintains close ties to the New York State. Alissa's poetry has appeared in print and online journals, including Sheila Nagin, Black Moon Magazine, Chain 7, Quiet Diamonds, Main Street Rag, Evening Street Review, Stone Canoe, Yearling, Ohio Bards, and Via, Voices in Italian Americana, Tags on Fire in the 2021 and 2022 Lexington Poetry Month and Holiday. She is the author of at least 4 poetry books. Again, this might be updated. Beyond the Dawn, at a Turning Point Press, See Them Now, also Turning Point. Moon Landing Day, Finishing Line Press, Cupcake Day, Turning Point, and The Waiting Room, Turning Point. The latest book of poetry is Sacred Doll. And as you can see, we have lots of books for sale up here and signing. You can find more information or the books at AlissaSammarco.com, ALISSASAMMARCO. Alissa.
Hello, thank you for coming out. And I want to share some poetry with you. People ask me, how long have you been writing poetry? I've been writing since I was about, I don't know, when I started writing. 10? She says 10. I'll take that. Maybe earlier. I remember some books where you paste things that might count it. My latest book is called Paper Doll. It was issued or released by Main Street Rag this year. It won the International Impact Book Award for 2026. If you are not able to pick one up today, please feel free to stop by the Chicago bookstore. They do have copies. I'm going to start with a little lighter note, as suggested by someone. Most of the books in here are about love, not love, but about the love that we all live every day. But I'm going to start with something lighter. Who here knows Steve McQueen? Who likes fast cars? Who likes convertibles? Who likes sci-fi movies? Okay, there's 2 of us. Yeah. if you like sci-fi movies, you know The Blob. And this was written in the middle of the night after watching The Blob and remembering Steve McQueen died from cancer at a very young age. So I had to write this about him. Steve McQueen is dead. Long live the Queen. That bastard stole my heart, his fast cars and blue eyes, racing up the mountain to find the alien blob. The doctor said, I don't know what it is. I might have to amputate. As the man on the couch succumbed to the blob and the primordial horror flick. Kids yelling, monsters! Kids saving the town, kids circling the citizens to bag and bottle the blob that swallows everyone it touches. It digests them like the fly that sips liquid slurry through its proboscis. Kids screaming, parents crying, children, and McQueen kissing the girl, and the girl kissing the Queen. There's no air left. Saves the world, saves the girl, saves the boy. And all the time, all the blob wanted was a steak dinner and a ride home. Okay, so there's a little levity. There you go. Now let's get serious. Or not. This is a recent poem, and I'm going to read a few poems from my book. Oh. Don't tell me you love me because we have great sex. Tell me you love me because I smell like soap after I bathe, or I smell like nothing at all. And sometimes I wear that cologne that reminds you of when you were young. Tell me you love me because the day and the night are the same but twice a year. And because days are short in the winter, making long shadows at Christmas. Tell me you love me because lightning flashes just before the storm, and because the crackle of thunder rubs against your chin and prickles the hair of your skin. Tell me you love me because all the days that we walk together inevitably must come to an end. I tell you I love you because all the days we walk together inevitably must come to an end. And I love you because the lightning flashes before the storm begins. Thunder prickles the hairs of my skin. I love you because the days and nights are the same at twice a year, and the solstice makes shadows so long on Christmas Day. I love you because you smell like soap and baby powder, and sometimes nothing at all. I know that cologne you wear, it reminds me of when I was young. I would never tell you I love you for any other reason. Thank you. So my book is called Paper Doll, and it is love poems, but it is love poems that encompass every possible way that we love each other or don't love each other, or can't stand each other anymore, or miss each other, or long for each other. It loves us when we're together, and it loves us when we're apart. Paper doll, I would tell you to kiss my bottom if the game were less real. I would tell you to eat worms if the garden were turned. I would tell you I love you if you would look at me again. But you don't look at me, and I fold in half a paper doll, holding hands with myself. Thank you. We can clap if you want. Actually, don't want to. Participation is optional. So I call on you. So many of us remember what it was like to have that first feeling, not only of loving someone else or desiring someone else, but of realizing maybe they don't love you, or maybe there's that angst and anxiety. Maybe there's that pain that comes from that. Sweet honey, wildflowers. I wanted to be a boy. Cut off shorts and bare feet, pin the head of a snake with my stick, pinch crawdads out of the creek, and fossils washed up on shale walls. I never wanted to be a girl, honeysuckle sweet, along the edge of the meadow where the north and south and east and west meet. I pretended to notice the thorns, warning that blackberries leave her stains on fingers and lips. I pretended not to notice the way you looked lying next to me, your t-shirt soaked and salty. I pretended words didn't hurt as much as the back of a hand. If only I had been a boy with all the power to make a girl cry. Thank you. One more on this line. Does everybody remember what the Walmart is? We all know what Walmart is now, but once upon a time, the Walmart was the place you could go. It was an event, it was a location, it was a destination, it was not just a store. I got my inspiration at the Walmart. Where else would real life unfold other than the Walmart on the floodplain by the railroad tracks where I used to shop for records, the original discount store? I bought Beatles records and spun the White Album and Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts, needles scratching grooves. Where else could I go to see fat bottom girls on bicycles while Queen rode through Bohemian Rhapsody? No, kiss me under the bleachers, behind the dumpster, in the back seat of a Chevy, in the drive-in, giant creatures battling for domination, and your hand slipped over my breast, and maybe somewhere south of there. But the Walmart still has McDonald's, and blue jeans rumpled on shelves, and fake Nike sneakers, and orange cheese puffs, and Coca-Cola, and you, tucked in the pocket of my blue jean jacket. Thank you. We're going to head back to the convertibles. Yeah. Because they're so fun. 1970 Ford Thunderbird. Thanks for the ride, baby. I wondered why I felt light in this tank of a sky blue convertible, why I couldn't help waving my hand in the wind, why I laughed when my hair caught in my teeth. He gunned it. We left crescent tire marks on the street through the park. The air, thick with the sound of mowers, chiseled my cheeks, chipped away years, and I laughed, my hair swirling in the air, sunglasses and lip gloss shining. So thank you. So I want to tell you a little story about this poem. I was having a bad day, and I went to my mechanic, and I said, "Can you fix it?" And he said, "Sure." And I said, "Can you give me a ride to my office? Because I got to go to work." And he said, "Well, Mike can take you there." So Mike comes out with his convertible. Yes, it was a 1974 Thunderbird sky blue convertible, stick shift, because they didn't make them without anything else back then. And as we're pulling around a corner by my office, he gunned it. We were in front of the police station and the fire station, and went around and left big skid marks. And I swear to God, that was the best thing that happened for like weeks. I got to ride in it. What am I doing on time? Oh. So we can't leave on without a love poem. 100 love poems. At dinner, you promised them to me. Our favorite waitress cried when I showed her the ring. She must have known. They all must have known. And I tried my best not to guess. 100 kisses covered your face and neck and hands with them over desert roses, spindly and pale, waiting for the rain that comes only once in a lifetime. 100 mouthfuls of sorrow swallowed, my heart now filled with sweet cream and bright red cherries. 100 lives lived in 100 seconds, and each one I count and taste and savor while our lips touch 100 times more. Has anyone been to the Pacific Coast? There are a few Pacific Coast people here. Has anyone been lucky enough to see what they call the green flash? It's pretty amazing, isn't it? And if you look away for just a second, you miss it. It just is there and it's gone and it flashes green across the horizon. It's been the subject of many poems, but most of all, it is so elusive and so hard to actually capture or even see. You have to be the right place at the right time. So this is about what happens when the green flash is gone. She saw it once from a bar, while the beach packed up the trappings of families, blonde surf bodies lingering on hot sand and cold water. She shouldered a bag of shovels and pails, smile fading, flashes of green in her eyes, pulling truculent children to Sunday car and the crock pot of foam in the kitchen. Lover, she whispered. It scratched the back of her throat. Once it ebbed and flowed from the kitchen to the bedroom. Once a surrender, a sunset beginning. Once she believed it, like the green flash on the Pacific coast just before sinking. Thank you. Good. Yeah. Or one little tiny one left. Yeah. Okay. So I want to leave you with just one tiny poem. It might be a haiku, it might not. I have a fear of haiku, so if this is a haiku, don't tell me. Star Child, you burn like whiskey, your kisses like wine. Star Child, we circle divine. And thank you so much. Again, you can find a copy at bookstore. You can get a copy from me today. Tell your friends, tell your family. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your memorable songs. I know I'll think of Walmart, little different next time I visit. Just a few words about some of our special annual events. One of them is in the recent past, this past Sunday, we had the Authors Among Us book fair. All three of these authors were there, very well attended, very successful. Look for it next year, mid-July. That wouldn't happen. If you're a writer, please be aware that the annual writing contests are now open to writers of all ages. There are prizes involved. The deadline is Sunday, August 2nd. If you go to our website, phq.org/FCWC, you can find a link to the web. Also, you can find out more about guidelines for the contest. On August 20th, which is the Thursday, we'll be holding the annual Robert Pinsky Favorite Poem Project. Robert Pinsky himself, when he was poet laureate, was at the CASA and initiated the first favorite poem project. I'm trying to think, that's why there was a blank look on my face for a second. 20s, how many years ago? approximately 20 years ago. If you'd like to read your favorite poem, not written by you or a family member, once again, go to chq.org/FCWC. There's guidelines and a way of submitting an application. I want to remind you that there will be books for sale and signing, and we should have time for a short Q&A after the reader. I'll also be talking about some upcoming events. Don't worry, Catherine.
All right. I expect
Some
that.
events the rest of the week. But we are getting to Catherine, who helped organize the book fairs. Congratulations. And it's our second reader. Yeah. In addition to being a Friends of the Talk Writers Center volunteer, Catherine D'Agostino is a member of the Mystery Writers of America. Her novels, Tangled Vines and Braided Lives, are set in the Thousand Islands and the Finger Lakes. A true sign she is a New York State writer. In 2024 and 2025, she was a finalist in the Lakeshore Center for the Arts One Act Play Competition, a novel, plays, and is also the author of Linger, a chapbook of black fiction, poetry, and drama, which was a direct result of attending writing workshops here at Chicago. Now retired from her career as a high school and college English instructor, she enjoys being an empty nester alongside her husband, Don, in Fredonia, New York. Catherine.
Good afternoon. Again, I'm Catherine D'Agostino, very honored to be here today. Thank you to the Friends of Chautauqua Writers Center for inviting me to speak about my newest mystery novel, Tangled Vines. The novel opens with the 2004 disappearance of high school junior Zoe Scarborough, the daughter of a prominent family who owns a vineyard and winery in the heart of the Finger Lakes wine country on Cayuga Lake. Just this past Sunday at the book fair here, I said those same words to a woman who cut me off and said, "Does it open with a dead body?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "I'll take it." So that is my setup. That's how my mystery novels begin. And here is the prologue for Tangled Vines. This is from the perspective of the character Zoe Scarborough, Saturday, May 29th, 2004 at 12 p.m. As the nylon fibers tightened across my throat, I clawed behind my head for my attacker's face. My fingers tried to find a gap of weakness of any kind, but there was none. I choked for air. A familiar voice cooed in my ear. "I can explain everything. You can't leave yet. You need to listen." The grip tightened. I wanted to say, "I will. I'll believe everything you say. Just let me breathe." But my lungs were empty. I flailed my arms forward, hoping my hands would grab something, anything, to give me leverage. But they only grasped air. At that moment, I knew just one thing. I was about to die. So that is one short prologue, but it accomplishes quite a bit, all right, in very few words. You know Zoe Scarborough's fate right in the beginning. In fact, did you catch anything about her killer? Yeah, so she knows the person. And I really set this up like that on purpose because I love dramatic irony. Okay, that is one of the key components I use of the three I'm going to talk about today. That is number one. I like letting the readers in on a secret right at the very, very beginning, because really what I'm doing is dooming you. Okay, every time you meet a character, you're going to say to yourself, is he the killer? Is she the killer? You're going to look at that dialogue in a different way to see if there's a little hint, and you certainly will suspect several people. If you have ever been a reader who, as you're reading, you say things like, "Oh, don't get in that car," or do not tell that woman your secret, you know what I'm talking about. Okay, you are engaged. In fact, I consider setting a novel up like this, like giving you insider trading information. Okay, you have an advantage. And I think it makes writer and reader invested in the storyline. The second commitment I make to my readers is that I give you a plausible plot. I want it to be believable. Okay, you should feel as you're going along, you shouldn't be stopping and questioning anything. So here's one more thing that happens at the very start of the novel. It takes place on Cayuga Lake, one of the Finger Lakes in New York State. And there's a giant winery fire, and everybody watches this fire. The police, the emergency, the personnel, the entire town, they close their businesses to go watch this fire on the lake. The people who are on their boats on the lake go and watch the fire. Now, is that realistic? Is that realistic? Okay. So you should feel like you're reading a true story. Okay. I think I pushed myself hard for that. I have had, when in my first novel, Braided Lies, I've had quite a few people come up to me and say, I don't remember that event happening in Buffalo. And I don't remember this, you spoke about this, and I'm like, fiction. Okay. But I do take great compliment when I am asked that question. But before I get to the third component of my novels, I want to read you a passage. I selected this passage because it was written upstairs in this building during a writer's workshop under the tremendous guidance of mystery writer Ellen Crosby. And she met with me about this piece, and it's very special to me for that reason. This passage is from the perspective of Zoe Scargrove's father, okay, Joseph, May 30th, 2004, and this is a half hour before the prologue. While standing between my vineyards of Chardonnays and Concords, I had a sudden vision of my wife's bloodied body. It didn't take much to bring the memory back. One moment, I was rubbing my fingertip over a grapevine's pruning pot. The next, I was back beside Hazel, forcing my breath into her lungs, begging her to breathe. The realization of how close I had come to losing her still sickened me. We had taken precautions. All the wineries did, especially after 5-year-old Robbie Jansen was found unresponsive on the floor of Wild Vineyard's poorly ventilated fermentation room. The boy had wandered inside during an outdoor wedding, and just as the guest showered the happy couple with dry rice, someone discovered his lifeless body. The winery closed the following year. The new marriage, a year after that. Since the accident, I deliberately kept myself close to Hazel as often as I could by offering to join her when she ran errands or by inviting myself along whenever she mentioned she was going for a walk in the vines. We both knew my offers were only valid until the harvest began in August, the annual time I would cast her off as a winemaker's widow until the end of October. The fresh spring breezes swirling through the vines this morning were a far cry from the antiseptic sting that prickled my nose the night I nearly became a widower in the emergency room at the Cayuga County Memorial Hospital. There, the girls and I paced the black and white checkered floor, silently and individually, promising God to be a better person from now on if he would just keep Hazel breathing on this planet a little longer. No sooner did Zoe and Stella ride the elevator down the floor to get a soda in the cafeteria than the operating room door opened. A doctor walked straight to me. Dr. Landon, I said, how is she? Alive, she said, snapping off her latex gloves. The shoulder wound was traumatic, gnarly, to be honest. A skin graft might be in her future. Was anything else damaged, I said? Her brain? The doctor shook her head. Jean-Luc must have dragged her out of there shortly after she passed out. He's lucky to be alive, too. Like in drowning cases, the rescuer can quickly become the victim. She rubbed her index finger against her temple. Hazel's oxygen level is steady at 98%. That's good, Joseph. That's very good. She checked her watch. She'll be asleep for at least another hour. I don't understand what happened, I said. The carbon dioxide warning alarm in the fermentation room never sounded. She nodded. The paramedics told me that. I'm sure the insurance company will review the entire system to find out what went wrong. I could have lost her, I said. Dr. Landon reached out and touched my arm, but you didn't. I closed my eyes in gratitude, but then flicked them wide open. Jean-Luc, how is he? Come with me, she said. I'll show you. The doctor led me down the hall to the recovery room. She tapped the glass. I'm not sure how to code Jean-Luc's treatment, but I'll think of something. I looked in and found Hazel surrounded by blinking machines, and there on the bed, wedged between the metal bed frame and Hazel's hip, was Jean-Luc, his long golden body stretched out beside her, his blood-stained snout resting on her thigh. When our eyes met, Jean-Luc managed a weak wag of his tail. Once he came around, he wouldn't leave her side, Dr. Landon said. Looks like he tried to drag her out by her t-shirt, but he kept tearing. Somehow he made a split-second decision to sink his teeth into her shoulder and drag her out. He's the hero. A breath caught in my throat, allowing me to only whisper, good job. So I decided to incorporate the dangers of a faulty ventilation system at the very beginning of my novel. I can't tell you how it will develop, but I can tell you where the idea came from. And this brings me to my third component, my priorities in writing the story. I like to include events that happened in real life, news stories from around the world. So in this case, I had read a heartbreaking news article about a tragedy that took place in a vineyard in Italy back in 2021. 4 men, one from each family, each died. Each died after being overcome with carbon dioxide fumes in their winery's fermentation room. The men aged 45 to 60 each ran in trying to save the other. Such a tragedy, but the writer inside me had to ask, what if I had the same setting with a more sinister motive? Okay, so that's just how I roll. It's sometimes unfortunate, but sometimes wonderful. And I freely admit here that I felt it was my responsibility to thoroughly research the winery industry by visiting as many wineries as possible. I'm a dry register for sure. But it also involved a little local connection. It also involved turning to 2 local wineries for help, just a few miles from here in Westfield. You'll arrive at the oldest estate winery in New York State, Johnson Estates, owned by Fred and Jennifer Johnson. After a fall tour, they were gracious enough to let me take photos around their winery. So these grapes on the cover are from their vines. And they also taught me what the color of the back of leaves reveal about a vine's origin. The second winery, if you leave Johnson Estates and drive east on Route 20 to Liberty Vineyards and Winery in Sheridan, New York, Gary and Pam Burmaster were always willing to talk shop with me. They even, I took them a manuscript before publishing, and they went through the parts where I talked about farming and making of the grapes and wine, and they made sure my descriptions were authentic, and I was grateful to them. So I tangle vines, and I hope you enjoy my latest tale that rests on senseless grudges, misplaced guilt, and outright murder. Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Catherine, for that combination of reading and craft talk that you learned about some elements that make up a mystery. And I admire your dedication, subjecting yourself to going to wineries. That's what's suffering for your art, suffering for your art. Okay. Just a few reminders and announcements about events coming up soon. Tomorrow at 12:15 on Desert Plaza, the Young Readers Program will be discussing or at least setting up experiences for the kids having to do with 2 books, Catherine Rundell's Impossible Creatures and Mara Rothfuss's Signs of Hope, the Revolutionary Art of Sister of the 10th. Also on Wednesday at 12:15, the Summer on the Step series continued with Imagining a Future Beyond Climate Change, the Lessons from the Haitian Revolution. That'll be presented by Tony Toname, in conjunction with Mark Wensler, who's the sort of environmental scientist for the institution. Note, this event will take place in stiff wilts, all because there is some AV component to it. But if you really sprint, you can go from that event back here for the informal critique at 1:15. You can try to catch up with me because I'll be sprinting. Okay. Thursday at 12:00, the locals at the library series continued with authors offering their books for sale. We'll have Alissa Sammarco with Paper Doll, Kara Silverstein with Above the Fall Line poetry. She's done memoir and novel, and now she's doing poetry. Kara, by the way, used to be head of the Writers Center. And I should have mentioned Sunny Toname was the Michael Riddell literary arts person here up until about 3 days ago. And the third person at local library is Samuel Skip Halpern for the nonfiction work, Wellspring of Work, surprising sources of meaning and motivation in work. On Friday, remember it's Fridays now, not Thursday, he's still as the author of the week. Lily Alano will be speaking at 2:00 about Latino Man, a portrait of the largest and the least understood minority. And now, with the reshuffled order, we're getting to Jeff Pines, an award-winning New York Post headline writer. I love that stuff with him. And former reporter, the author of 11 Mimi Goldman mysteries sent into Papua, crime-ridden as we are, and available at the Chicago bookstore, library, and anywhere you read online. The Grandma of Four, Chautauquan by Marriage, Lover of Puns, Coffee, Classic Rock, and Showtunes. She now lives in New York City with her husband, Dave. Today she will read from her latest mystery novel, Tossing Seas, and it features, once again, the Miss Marvelous, rather, amateur sleuth, a Chautauquan daily reporter, grandmother, and former New York Post copy editor. Seems to be a stranger over out there. Okay, named Mimi Goldman. Yeah.
Thanks, Fred, for the kind introduction, and thanks all of you for choosing to spend your time with us when on a beautiful Chautauqua day that you have a lot of other choices. I'm also hoping that you all have an appetite for more talk about the craft of mysteries and an excerpt. Last time and the previous times I was here, I did more talk, and today I am going to read the first chapter, which is a short chapter of my newest book that's called Tossing Seas. It's actually the 12th in my mystery series, Mimi Goldman mystery series. I'm going to talk a little about my aims, but I'm going to read the first chapter. Even before that, to set the scene, I'm going to give you the quick hype about this mystery number 12. Okay. When Simon Cole, a lonely widower, takes up with Janine Davis, a younger woman who claims she knew him from childhood Chautauqua summers, Simon's family is dubious. They enlist Mimi Goldman, Chautauqua's Miss Marple, to prove that Janine's a gold-digging fraud. But when Simon turns up dead after his 65th birthday bash on a local steamboat, Mimi has a new mission, finding his killer among Chautauqua's high-minded talks and charming cottages. The craft talk I was going to talk about, because I'm reading the first chapter, is a little bit about what people aim for in the first chapter. Many authors talk about the importance of a first line or a first chapter as a hook. And Mickey Spillane, the king of pulp fiction, said, quote, "Nobody reads a mystery to get to the middle. They read it to get to the end.
If it's a letdown, they won't buy any more. The first page sells that book. The last page sells your next book. So I do try to follow that, but I did want to make one other point, which is I'm not just trying to hook you from the beginning on a fabulous story. I'm also trying to make you feel at home. I'm trying to announce to you that this is the type of mystery that you sought by my cover. It's more a traditional Miss Marple-ish, not 100% accurate, but plausible, a little bit lighter, a little less gore, a little bit of humor. And so I want to tell you right from the get-go that you should feel at home if you're looking for a story that's like Only Murders in the Building, or the Thursday Murder Club, or Murder, She Wrote, or Miss Marple stories of Agatha Christie. I want anyone to feel welcome to join if that's what you're looking for, a silver-haired sleuth who's underestimated and follows clues to more clues to danger to hallelujah and something like 270 pages justice. And for readers who have been loyal and read all of the books, or many of the books, or some of the books, what I want them to feel when they read the first chapter or the first sentence is that you know what you're getting into, that I'm offering you the same but different this time. So here we go, the same but different. Like Agatha Christie, I put titles on the chapters. And chapter 1, the title is Simon's Birthday Bash. Simon Cole was living it up at his 65th birthday bash Saturday on the Chautauqua Belle, unaware that by week's end he'd be a murder victim. He loved playing host, showing off Janine, and putting on the wedding tux he wore at 22. Just buttoning the jacket made him feel smug and smart for betting on himself when no one else believed he would get rich charging people to store their own junk. Happy birthday, Mr. Cole. The bartender, a skinny local teen, raised his voice to be heard over the steamboat's clamor. Loud wheezes, splashes, horns, and whistles. Around them, guests on the top deck enjoyed past hors d'oeuvres and posing with a large orange Chautauqua Belle lifesaver. The sunset was so glorious it looked fake, bright pink, orange, and yellow streaks in the darkening sky. 2 G&Ts, please. Lemon or lime in the drink, sir? A lime in each, please. Yes, sir. The sirs were unnecessary, but nice. A reminder that the crew, polite local kids in sailor costumes, was angling for tips. Simon patted the cash envelope in his breast pocket. The bartender added lime wedges and straws to the highball glasses he gave to Simon. A drink in each hand, Simon turned to find himself, yikes, face to face with his only child. There you are, Sherry said. Simon summoned a kiss and his most charming smile. So good to see you. Sherry laughed. You've been ghosting me all week, and now it's good to see me? His actor daughter looked stunning. Her red hair was piled high. A short emerald green dress highlighted the eyes she inherited from her mom. Her height she got from him. I am glad to see you, hon, Simon said. Who wouldn't be? And I'm sincerely unglad, if that's a word, to talk about anything unpleasant tonight. Sherry shook her head. I can't believe you still don't. He held up a hand. Enough. There's a time and place. Tomorrow we'll do this. You'll have your say, I'll have mine, and that will be that. It's tomorrow, right? 9:30 at the house. 9:30? That's what you agreed to, Sherry wailed. 9:30. He held up a hand. Easy, easy. If I agreed, it's in my calendar. And if it's in my calendar, for what are you calling it again, or what? The word was on the tip of his tongue. An intervention. Right, right. The bells whistle sounded, they both laughed. The Mississippi River style steamboat, both Disney charming, built in the 1970s to look like the 1870s, and functional, propelled them through shallow water past cute lakeside towns he hardly knew. Like most of his guests, Simon came to this corner of Western New York State for the Chautauqua Institution's 9-week summer season of high-minded lectures, concerts, and the like, and rarely left Chautauqua's gated grounds. What do you think? Simon asked with a wave. Great party, Dad, Sherry said. It really is. Thanks, hon. In spite of himself, Simon was smiling. Can anyone resist a daughter's compliments? Even a daughter who, at 41, was still on his payroll and begrudging his happiness? Maybe he needed his own intervention. A crackling from the ice in his drinks interrupted his thoughts. So, hon, save the serious stuff for tomorrow. Tonight, glad you and Sean could make it. Enjoy yourselves. I've got to run and get this drink to Janine, or the con artist calling herself. Enough, Simon said sharply. That's enough. Simon Cole has never been anyone's chump, and that's not changing now. I could end there and answer questions. Yeah.
Let
Go
me
ahead.
do an announcement and we'll segue into general Q&A.
That would be great.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
So actually, I could have done that with Steph because we have little time for Q&A for any or all of the authors. Does anybody have questions? Anybody have answers?
Go ahead.
Is there something magical about 270 pages?
You know, I seem to
Oh, yeah.
write to 200.
Actually, they might be.
Oh, I have to go up.
So is there anything magical about 770 pages?
You know, I always set out to write something longer, but it seems like I end at 270 pages. And so I'm not fighting it anymore. The books are about 270 pages. That's it.
A new set form, you have haiku, 17 syllables, mysteries, 270. You have a question?
Question.
Go for it.
So how is it that you write about these places without and make them fresh, even to you? I mean, like, you know Chautauqua, I know Chautauqua. I can't write about Chautauqua because it doesn't feel like I'm writing about something else. I'm writing. It feels like I'm calling it in, kind of. How do you do that? How do you make it fresh?
Okay, how do you make it familiar place fresh? Right. Is that a good summary? I'm not sure that the microphone, for no.
Good question. I focus I'm much more character driven than place driven. The setting is important, but I focus more on what the characters are doing with the environment than on the environment itself. And in Tangled Vines, it is based on Penny Ann, New York. It is set on Cuba Lake, but I created a fictional town of Sassafras and a fictional winery, and I took some advice from one of the speakers here in the past, and she said that she never has anybody die in a real place, and that resonated with me. Just like I said, because I'm more character driven, because she didn't necessarily want people visiting these towns and going to this real business saying, do you have a dead body in the back? Have you opened up your big freezer lately? There might be something in there. So I subscribe to that. So even though it's based on a real place, I still have to bring my own magic to it. Okay. Okay,
all right. Well,
we're different in this.
yeah.
Ah.
You know, a lot of times I was speaking to a crowd and I talk about Chautauqua and they don't know it. So I mean, it takes a lot of explaining. Some people like, especially if I'm near New York City, that, you know, besides the puzzle look, somebody says, oh, I know Chautauqua, that's where Bill and Hillary Clinton live. And I go, no, that's not Chautauqua, that's Chappaqua. So what happens a lot is, you know, in the early books, I did explain a lot of Chautauqua. And then I forgot to explain it as time goes on, but I have one paid editor plus family and friends who read. And he is always reminding me when I'm done, you haven't explained Chautauqua enough. And you can never explain it enough, right? But as far as describing the place, I've been on the Bell and I took notes. And I've seen pictures, many pictures of the Bell, which is such a beautiful sight on the lake. So I think I enjoy the challenge of trying to describe Chautauqua. As far as, do people mind having, you know, there are people here who don't like a murder mystery set in Chautauqua, and then there's a lot of people who do. So I mean, I've been walking along the lake and just doing the perimeter walk, which I love to do, and a stranger pulled up next to me and said, see any dead bodies? You know, so I enjoy that.
Yeah.
But there are people who don't want me to come in and talk to them about their particular part of Chautauqua. And then I'll knock on the Episcopal cottage and tell them I want to set something here, and they'll go, come on in, have a beer, maybe a murder here, maybe. So some people enjoy the game of it as well and write me with suggestions, you know, and it almost feels like we're part of a team coming up with Chautauqua murder mysteries.
There actually was a dead body once.
Really?
Okay, in the Cary Hotel?
No, he drowned
Oh, drowning,
Yeah.
okay. Yes, and I'm,
about 10 years ago or so.
yes, and I don't hold myself to the highest standard of accuracy, but I like plausibility.
Well, you could work with that, I think.
I've had,
Drown.
I've had it, and so a good resource for me is the former sheriff of Chautauqua.
Wow.
Gerasi helps me quite a bit, just to make things plausible.
You got, correct
Yes.
me if I'm wrong. but
Yes.
there are a certain percentage of your audience, are Chicagoans who love finding dead bodies and.
Yes, I think
and
so.
Places.
A certain number, yes, who don't take offense.
Your
but-
special friends.
Right.
Yeah.
Any other questions? I'll turn one around. Some people see poetry as a mystery they have to solve. They say, I don't get poetry. Do you have an answer for them? What is that?
It's a mystery.
Uh-huh.
Not really. So I write poetry. I do write lyrical poetry, and if those of you know what lyrical poetry is, it is a more esoteric, might be more musical as you read through it. It is not specifically, it's not narrative where you're describing specific location, but you're describing, for me, it's describing a feeling with details and evoking an emotion. And I do quite a bit of that. I didn't read those today because of the format. I didn't think it really fits here. But most of my poetry is going to be more on the narrative line where you can almost tell a story. And if you don't know the story, your brain is going to fill in the gaps to what the story was. So when we're talking about the love poems, everybody has had feelings for another person, whether it's a parent to a child to a parent, a lover, a friend. And when I write about those things, your mind, based on the details, you know, if you're a young girl and you've had braids, and maybe you had boys pull your braids, maybe there's a detail about that, and that might trigger you to fill those other blanks in. So the mystery is in what you bring to it. not in the writing. There are a lot of poets who will write things that you have to figure out. I do, but I prefer that figuring it out is more a pleasure than a strain. And that's, I write narrative with plain language, and even my lyrical is with plain language. Even the haiku that I wrote just begrudgingly at some point. Yes, thank you.
Fred, I have a question for her as well. No, okay, so, for writing prose, I do a lot of rewriting, and that's like really the magic, the rewriting. For poetry, do you rewrite a lot, or the things occur to you, more like music or something?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
What do I want to admit to?
Uh,
So there have been times when the poem was done when I lifted my pen from the page. I'm not gonna say that I didn't go back and change
Yeah.
a few things to make it right. And then there are times when the poem lingered. And I would come back to it and rewrite it, and I'd come back to it and rewrite it, and I'd come back to it and rewrite it until it was absolutely dead on the page. Or in the air if you wanted to read it. And then you go back to the original and say, what was it that I missed here when I rewrote it? So there is a lot of rewriting. Some poets will rewrite their work as much as 40 or 50 or 60 times. I don't find myself doing that. I have a short attention span. But I do rewrite, and I edit. My favorite editor is sitting here with us today. Although I think he's afraid of editing anything I write anymore. He's a poet friend of us.
The recent quote, or recent conversation.
A recent conversation between us or someone else.
Yeah, it's about,
Oh, I gave him my most recent manuscript in progress, and it took him 6 months to review it, and I said, okay, I'll just stop thinking about it for a while. And he says, oh, no, I'm gonna get to it. So he hands it back to me, and I open it up, and there's like 2 or 3 punctuation corrections on each page. That's it. I said, I thought you were gonna read it. He said, I'm trying not to because you got so upset the last time that I made any comments about what made sense and what didn't. And I said, that's okay, because once your comments, I will probably just ignore them if I don't agree with them. But no, that's what you need in an editor. Somebody you can get mad at. Preferably when they're not in the room. Or related. Thank you.
But let's give some applause to all 3 of our authors. And with a few final announcements, if I can find them.
Picture the picture. Yes. And I want to get.
There they are on the bottom of that page. I do want to plug our sister art, the theater, the Chicago Theater Company will present the world premiere of the commission play that was workshopped last year, Best for Lady by Sharon Rothstein. A satirical look at the counseling Gotham Power controversy opens this weekend, I believe on Saturday, but don't vote me. Please join us next week for the Author's Hour with poet Craig Sack reading from his book Lovely Bread. Sonia Sutton, essay on music, he's the anthem organist. Currently, meditations and variations upon the about the Goldberg variations. And somebody named Fred will be reading his book of poetry, basically Cycling at Sunrise. I want to remind you that today's Author's Hour, the Technical Gods willing, will be posted on YouTube. There's a link on that chq.org/fcwc, and that'll take you to it. Also, if you just go to YouTube and write Friends of the Chicago Writers Center channel, make sure to include channel, then you'll see everything from 2020 when we all went virtual onward. Please consider joining the Friends of the Chicago Writers Center so you can help sponsor all the events that have been mentioned. and hope to see you around at some friend events or just in general. Okay, thanks so much. Take care.
Oh. Oh, Jan, that I had. I had two quite a human for my name.